Now, Halloween wasn't the only horror-related trailer that dropped this past week, as we got the new trailer for Nia DaCosta's Candyman, produced by Jordan Peele. Now, I've liked all the trailers that they've shown so far, and I've been pretty confident that this movie will be good because Blumhouse actively basically made it their mission to make sure that this movie didn't come out until, quote-unquote, the pandemic was over. And by that I mean, like, have people being able to go see the theaters. Like, they pushed this movie back so that people could see it in theaters. The pandemic is not over by any stretch of the imagination, but theaters are open. Life is getting relatively back to normal. So, to me, the fact that they kept pushing it back and going, no, we want this to play in theaters, that screams a vote of confidence to me, more so than any trailer could. That being said, the trailers don't skimp out either. The trailers that we've seen so far are fantastic, and the one that they just dropped is probably the best one we've gotten so far, and further confirms to me that Yahya Abdul-Mateen is and will be the new Candyman. Whether or not he will, like, become the new Candyman, or whether he will become Tony Todd's Candyman, like, become the vessel for the spirit of Candyman to inhabit him, or whether he himself turns into the Candyman, I'm still unsure of. But count me 100% down for this movie. Like, I'm not as excited for this as I am about Halloween Kills, but that's just because I'm more emotionally invested in the franchise that is Halloween. That being said, I really, really dug the original Candyman from the 90s. I think we are in an era of horror now that we talk more about, like, horror movies are more overt with their politics. Like, Get Out and Us very much wore their political messages on their sleeve. I really appreciate that Candyman also did that, but that was, I don't want to say that wasn't the norm back then, but it really wasn't the norm. Like, now, directors, like, try and make sure that they, not distractingly so, but they wear their heart on their sleeves in the movies. And Candyman, I really applauded it, especially for its time, absolutely did that. Horror movies at that time were very much just like, this is what it is. It's just cheap fun. When I watched the original Candyman, I was challenged, so to speak, because it's spoken from a different perspective than me, a boring white guy, is used to his horror movies being. I'm used to dumb teenagers being stalked in the woods. Candyman is like only a specific demographic is particularly afraid of him because he's a boogeyman for a certain generation and for a certain people. It's kind of the same thing with, like, La Llorona. I had never heard of her growing up, but certain cultures, I'm sure, are much more terrified, and that's their boogeyman. Candyman was some culture. That's their boogeyman. And watching that original one, it just gets me thinking, and I appreciate that they continue that with Candyman. Candyman has always very much been a cultural movie. Candyman, at least the second and third one, I never saw those because I didn't think they were going to be as good. Maybe I'll watch them at some point. But Candyman has always very much been about the culture that it comes from. Candyman has always had distinctly a very black voice to it, which is great and unique, especially in the horror genre. It makes it its own, and I appreciate that they even doubled down on that. I'm leaning towards this as a new Candyman because the origin feels different. In the original Candyman with Tony Todd, it was the townspeople deemed this relationship as quote-unquote inappropriate and did horrible, horrible things to him, cut off his arm, and that's where he gets the hook from. And it was much more old time. It's been a while since I've seen the first Candyman, but it felt like it was like post-Civil War, like it was old school, whereas this one felt much more modern in its interpretation of how the Candyman comes to be, addressing, like, police brutality and racial profiling, which doesn't seem like new territory for Jordan Peele being a producer. Jordan Peele's always tackled topics like that head on, and so to cover that with the horror that comes with Candyman and the phenomenal acting talents that is Yahya Abdul-Mateen, I'm beyond excited for this. My only question that I'm left with after watching this trailer is, to what extent will Tony Todd be in this? Because Freddy Krueger will always be Robert Englund. there's been some various Michael Myers. There's been various Jason Voorhees. That's primarily been Kane Hodder, though. Robert Englund has been Freddy Krueger. Tony Todd has been Candyman. Like, those are synonymous with that. And there's no way you do Candyman without him, at least to some extent, whether he's just the voice that comes out or what. But I'm curious as to what his role will be. I'm down for this movie. I'm excited for this movie. It is very blunt with what it is, and I love that. It's unapologetic of just like, we're going to confront some dark stuff, and that's what makes horror so scary, but also engaging and thought-provoking, because horror can do that. And Candyman, the original at least, really made me think and reflect, and I love when movies can do that, and I'm really hoping that this new one can have the same effect and just be as good. I don't know if as good, but as thought-provoking. Plus, I'm kind of having an eye on it because Nia DaCosta's next movie will be Captain Marvel 2, also known as The Marvel. So I'm kind of hoping she can kind of like turn that series around, as I did not enjoy the first Captain Marvel or Captain Marvel's appearances so far. So I'm going to have a very close eye on this movie, but I'm very optimistic about this movie, and us horror fans are going to be eating well for the next few months between The Green Knight, Candyman, Halloween, The Forever Purge, I guess. Whatever. Let's move on to something happier, shall we?